It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
All right, let's dive into Bernardo's question. He said, how can I better understand my risk tolerance? I sometimes struggle with the fear of losing money, while also experience the fear of losing the opportunities. He said, I'm 30 and I'm on FOOS step 7. So I think he's in a prime spot to kind of think about this.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Risk is a unique thing. We as humans do by and large a horrible job of estimating it. When things are safe, we tend to feel like we have a higher risk tolerance, and when things are scary, we tend to think that we have a lower risk tolerance. And what ends up happening is when those times hit, it becomes very apparent what our true risk tolerance is. The first thing that I would mention is right now is a great assessment to figure out what your true risk tolerance is. It's very easy to have a conversation with someone and say, hey, how would you feel if your portfolio lost 25%? And they'll say, oh, I'm a long-term investor. I get it. I understand. It's very different when you open your account statement and you say, holy cow, I am 25% less wealthy than I was at the start of this year. I would assess right now, how are you feeling in this moment? How are you feeling in this market? And that's going to give you a really solid indication of where your true risk tolerance lies.
I always tell, because it's one of those things that until you've been there and done that and see how the system works, it's hard. That's why I love we get to create content, because we share our journey. We do a lot of experience shares. We tell what made other people we work with successful, what's made us successful, so you can hopefully replicate that, even if you haven't had some of these things, because it's not uncommon. The last downturn, look, I'm going to keep out the pandemic because that was just a blink of an eye. Drop of 35%, quick recovery. I mean, if you took a nap, you might have missed that. But in 2008/9, and then go back to the dot-com, those were more traditional recessions, downturns. And I know I've always been consistent with telling young advisors, telling clients, it's okay that emotionally you feel the pain of this, but I want you to absorb it. Figure out how you take this negative energy and turn it into something positive, so that in the future, you don't subject yourself to all of that, should I buy more? Should I sell less? Should I go to safety? Because that's a human thing. We have fight or flight is a real thing. It's built into the whole recipe for us. So it's completely rational for you to be nervous. But this is why I love that we also have the ability to learn how do you make the best out of a cruddy situation. And that's why we love that we give you the stats on how fast things recover, because this will recover. We had somebody come to a studio tour in the last few weeks, maybe a month ago, and they said, hey, I wanted to go listen to, y'all been doing content since 2006. I went and listened to y'all's shows back in 2008 and 9. Y'all said the exact same things. It's just now you sound a little more confident or cool about it. And it's true. I mean, now I worry for my clients, because I don't want them, if you heard me on the call when I'm comforting clients that are concerned and making sure, I guess in our industry you call it holding their hands to make sure they feel taken care of and in a good place. I really am trying to make sure they don't make a bad emotional decision, because I know how the rest of this plays out. We will make it through this, and every dollar we're using right now is concentrated. It is compacted into, we've loaded the spring that it will take off. I mean, I have a call with someone, because of where they works for, I'll just say it, because I don't think it's a bad thing to say the company, like Intel. Intel right now, if you go look at the price to earnings ratio, if you look at the dividend yield on it, you're like, whoa, the world has lost connection with intrinsic value versus fair market value. And that happens. You see a lot of irrational stuff to get to that capitulation where people just start throwing good because they just want comfort. That's when the maximum financial opportunity exists. So you have there's nothing wrong with you having questions about risk tolerance. You wouldn't be human if you didn't have these concerns. But if you know your why, if you begin with the end in mind and you actually know what you're going to, you can use this to actually turbocharge. How do you fast track your future financial success?
And when it comes to self-assessing it, you need to understand the difference in risk tolerance, how much you can handle, and risk capacity, how much you should handle. I would argue for you at 30 years old, your risk capacity is pretty great. You have a long-term time horizon. So if your tolerance is not there yet, you got to figure out how do I get those things to match. And Brian, you said it perfectly. Education is the solution to risk. If what's going on right now is uncomfortable and scares you, the way that you overcome and combat that is understanding how markets work, understanding what cycles look like, understanding what recoveries are, and understanding what money does over the long term. If you can educate yourself on that, you will begin to recognize you have a higher tolerance for risk than maybe you do right now in this moment.